So after a chaotic, but slightly less chaotic than we might have thought vote for Speaker of the House, where Mike Johnson did in fact lose the first round of voting before then clutching up the necessary votes in the second round to remain Speaker, I wanted to look at a CNN panel discussing not only this, but some comments that Hakeem Jeffries made after the fact that are going viral on social media.
I don't think there was anything revelatory about what Hakeem Jeffries said today in his speech. There have been a lot of resources in campaign ads and certainly a lot of time spent by Democratic House candidates and Senate candidates acknowledging and speaking to the economic pain that Americans have been feeling. And in fact, if you look at what Democrats in the majority did when I was in Congress, in the 117th Congress, we actually had plans for how to bring down the cost of child care, how to bring down the cost of health care, and so on and so forth. Social Security and Medicare was a big theme in this past election cycle. It just sucks for it to be a change election and to be the party in power.
But I do think it's, first of all, when he talked about the economy last year, a lot of it was thank you, President Biden, for all the things that you did, and a laundry list
Which he did today, by the way, at the end of his speech.
So here they're talking about the Hakeem Jeffries clip from his speech where essentially he spoke about working bipartisanly on the issues that need dealt with. Like, yeah, we'll work with Republicans on economic issues and the border and all of this, which is a step further than Republicans went under Biden, who just outright refused to legislate on anything for about a year and a half, spending instead their time investigating Biden so Trump could look better on the campaign. Just further showing that it's the Democratic Party as the only party who even kind of cares about Americans and will put them over their party, over electoral success, because their aim in the minority is how do we continue to help Americans? How can we leverage and do what we consider good work and put forth good policies for the American people? Meanwhile, when Republicans are in the minority, their only thoughts are, how do we become the majority? How do we make the other party look bad? How do we hinder the Democratic president from passing legislation? Who can we investigate? And they'll waste millions of taxpayer dollars in the meantime doing such.
We have to look at the Republicans' mandate now on this. The cost of, a gallon of milk, 20% of that goes into the processing, the logistics, the admin behind getting that gallon of milk. Republicans' answer to that is give everybody raw milk, just completely deregulate the thing. And for those of us who would like pasteurized milk, I know controversial takes on that. We want to be able to buy that gallon of milk without the exorbitant cost, that pasteurized gallon of milk, and finding that happy medium. And Republicans need to get to work, figure out how to reduce those costs for everyday Americans.
I think here's what I've missed from the 2024 campaign is and I was on this set talking about affordability, and Democrats saying everything's great. Inflation's down, unemployment's down. And I'm saying, no, affordability is the issue. Oh, wages are up. Like, there was a huge disconnect with the Democratic Party and what actually ailed America at that time. And that was America just became unaffordable, whether it was milk, whether it was rent, whether it was insurance.
I just want to start by saying this idea that Republicans got a mandate in this election is the biggest lie we ever let get spun into a narrative. But when the right controls media narratives in the country, I guess it's kind of hard to stop it. Trump won by the fourth smallest popular vote margin in election history. He won by tens of thousands of votes in the swing states, and even within his own party, he's now struggled to get his endorsed candidate elected speaker. It took 2 rounds. He had multiple Republicans ready to defect and ready to question him, and he's working with a razor-thin majority in the House, whereas last time he had a bigger majority and was unable to pass anything except for one bill with tax cuts. By every metric, this win is half the size Biden's and Democrats was in 2020, half the size that Democrats did in 2022 in the midterms. But for them, the 2020 election was stolen, of course. For Trump, it's a mandate. This both just shows the disingenuous nature of MAGA, how they're always just going to frame things to benefit themselves. Name one thing MAGA has ever framed that was in a way that wasn't more beneficial to themselves. I'll wait. And then second, it speaks to the right's ability to control media narratives. I love when MAGA pretends that it's the left that controls big media and big tech and the left controls narratives, when you can just look at the last 2 elections to disprove this. The right has framed the narrative from both of these elections with zero evidence to back up either claim that they've used to frame it. In 2020, the entire narrative about the election was it was stolen, despite 60 court cases proving it wrong, despite no evidence being put forth, despite Rudy Giuliani admitting he lied in court, Dinesh D'Souza admitting he lied in court, and multiple people in the Trump administration also saying, hey, Trump was knowingly spreading these lies. None of that matters. But But when it's 2024, now it's a huge mandate, even though Republicans, again, lost by like half the size that Democrats did. It just shows how it's Republicans that control these media narratives. And what was said on the end here was true, but we flushed this point out pretty thoroughly. Democrats are the only party that puts forth policies to address these tabletop problems, but they just don't know how to message correctly. While Trump stoking people's anger proved to be enough, despite him offering literally zero solutions to the problems, and within 2 days of winning, admitting, hey, I'm not going to be able to bring down grocery prices.
It's really tough to fight against inflation because if inflation goes up, obviously, if it goes down, prices don't go down, they still go up. They just go up a little slower. And people have this memory of 5 years ago, eggs were this, now they're this. So it was tough to battle against. Democrats can talk about affordability and democracy. And people are kind of poo-pooing the democracy thing. And I get it, that shouldn't be the number one issue. But that did gin up the Democratic base that still turned up and could have voted less without a message that ginned them up. You know, people talk all the time, you know, Donald Trump is talking about the border because that gins up his base. Democracy is an important issue to Democrats. And I think this year, even though they lost, look, a bird sneezing differently a week before the election, and that 1-point victory by Donald Trump would have been a 1-point victory by Kamala Harris. It was a win by Donald Trump.
Yeah, and this point just goes to most people not understanding what inflation is, how it works, or how it's caused. I mean, if these people knew how it was caused, then they wouldn't blame it on Biden in the first place, and that's part of like its strategy. Republicans aren't going to let you know how it's caused. That way, when they tell you it's Biden, you'll believe them. This is why it's most important that your wages are outpacing inflation than just what the rate of inflation is per se. Inflation is actually needed for an economy to grow, which Democrats did have wages above inflation for almost 2 years. It's just hard to make these points when you also have to educate people on them and try not to sound condescending at the same time. And with MAGA, a lot of the times, the second you tell them they're wrong, their brain shuts down. And they're also so brainwashed that they'll give Trump credit for like a good economy. But then if you ask them like what policy made that economy good, they'll be like, I don't even know. But, you know, Trump was president when the economy was good, and that's enough. But then if you point out something Biden did, it's name the policy, name exactly how it affected this, show me the data. Oh, it wasn't even him who did it. It was actually this, and blah, 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 blah. The problem with most prices right now is price gouging, corporate greed, of which Democrats, Kamala Harris, had policies to tackle, and of which Republicans will never address because the corporations are their donors. We now know from financial reporting, Trump got 3 times the billionaire donations as 3 times more billionaire donations than the entire Democratic Party. He got almost twice as many corporate donors and corporate dollars. So the fact that you would ever think that he's going to then turn around and lower prices and cut into the profit of the people who allow his party to win, I mean, if you want to know what a politician will do, literally just follow the money. It's that simple. Trump got a bunch of money from billionaires and corporations. He's talking about lowering the corporate tax rate even lower. He got a bunch of money from Miriam Adelson. He's talking about letting Israel have free reigns, and he's appointing people like Mike Huckabee, Mike Waltz, Marco Rubio. It's, again, pretty clear Trump is a deep state establishment elite. He's gonna follow the money. Just follow the money.